Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the TripleJump podcast. It's a video game podcast. What's up? I'm Dick Mycinko.
Breaking news. I'm Brian Bumpiss.
And I'm still just Ashton
Oh.
Matthews.
Our last one.
Yeah.
Our last one before we disappear into the sunset and Ben and Peter come back. How have you enjoyed it, Brian?
It's been good. It's good timing though that I'm heading off now because there's been a general election in the UK.
Yeah, you're very busy.
At time of recording, we have no idea who's won. Well, actually, we know exactly who's won. But so I've got to go and do all sorts of political commentary now for the foreseeable. So my time here is over. My planet needs me.
Yes.
Yeah, I must go. How about you?
You got any plans for after you're done?
I'm just going to kick up my feet,
bodies.
I think, for the summer.
All right.
Just go to a nice all-inclusive before I go back to checking the bodies, because the arseholes are still twitching.
Yeah.
And then there's lots of wars to be fought, and governments to be toppled, that sort of thing. But yeah, I think I'm just going to go kick my feet up.
For a little bit.
Eat some shrimp.
Love that.
Some cocktails and so on. What are you going to do after we're gone?
Just the same as always.
Just
Same as
welcome
always.
Carry on
your
working.
former colleagues back with open arms.
Well, I'm going to be a bit disappointed in them because they've not even reached out for a whole month.
Oh.
You know?
They're still doing podiots, which is kind of
Yeah, I know.
Isn't it?
That's what I thought. I thought, you're doing podiots, but you can't even be bothered to just
Not even
send
like
me a message and
you,
ask, like, how's everything going?
How are Dick and
Brian? How are you
those
coping
guys.
with the new employees that we've hired back? You know,
Yeah.
not a message, not a one.
Not a peep.
Maybe
Yeah.
what we should do is me and you should leave about 5 minutes before they come back so that briefly, temporarily, you will be the sole presenter in charge of all creative decisions because that's how it works.
Yeah.
And you can just, become a dictator.
Just change the entire
everything,
channel, yeah.
Tear up the constitution. And
Yeah.
when they march back in, it's Ashton Jump.
Yeah. I'll say welcome back to Ashton Jump.
Yeah.
Should have stayed in contact.
Yeah.
That's what you get.
Good idea.
Yeah. You been well though? You guys been good since the last week we did this podcast?
Yeah.
Yes. Have you?
Yeah, great.
Good.
Having a great time.
And although it is the last podcast we're doing, we're also about to shoot an After Dark, aren't we?
That's true.
So
yeah,
if you're
there
a
is
patron of a certain tier.
one more additional bonus podcast coming from Brian and myself. But before
And also me, I'll be there too.
Well, yeah, but that's a given.
Yeah,
You know,
that's true.
you're always here.
I am always
You're
here.
always here.
Except when you're not.
Except when I'm not.
Before we go any further, we need to talk about this week's sponsor, which is, of course, from a very real video game adjacent enterprise. It helps us keep the bulb on in this room. Any Dead Island 2 the Spider action going on?
There's a couple in the corridor and in next door, but
I don't see any
Where have they
in
gone?
here.
They've disappeared from here.
yeah,
You
they
never
did
know.
definitely come
There was
back
like
for
a
couple-
spider in here every day for like a whole year, and they've been in and out a lot recently.
Sad. It's because they're so famous. They've got a T-shirt now.
A lot of cobwebs up in that corner
Yeah,
around
but-
the foam.
No spooders.
Oh well. Ashton, I believe you've got the ad read in front of you.
I do. So you guys,
Sorry, is that a spider up there?
yeah, it looks like it. A
It
little
is.
tiny one.
Confirmed.
Dead Island 2 the Spider has been found.
Yeah.
Yes.
Sorry. What was I saying? Oh yes. Here's my sponsor. So you guys know hit movie franchise The Fast and the Furious.
Of course.
Yeah.
1 through 10, I think they've made now.
Right.
Well, they're kind of branching out into video games again. We've experienced the joys of Fast and Furious, the bad one. What was that called?
We weren't there.
Fast X.
No.
weren't there.
The terrible movie tying game.
Oh, there's
Anyway,
7.
there was
Oh,
a
I
Fast
see.
and Furious game.
Right.
Probably been quite a few Fast and Furious games. So they're trying something different now. They're trying like an RPG that's got like Souls-like elements.
Oh, wow.
And like a different kind of travel. Like there's a little tiny car that just zips around in the sky. In a new game that they're calling Gridlock: Siege of Dominic Toretto. Is the name of the game. Inic Toretto's in brackets.
Inic Toretto.
It's called Gridlock: Siege of Dom.
Inic Toretto.
Inic Toretto.
Okay.
Yeah, you play as Dom.
Yeah.
Inic Toretto, and his
Family.
little car. That's his family, and then you zip through the skies.
Okay.
But if it's gridlock, well, I get, it's
in
just
skies.
as well you're going through the skies because the
because
roads
it's
are
exactly
absolutely gridlocked.
he's trying to clear the gridlock so they can be fast and furious.
Right,
You
right.
know.
You can't be in the sky and furious. It doesn't.
No,
it doesn't
no.
work like
No.
that at all.
Exactly.
Good old Dom.
They spend a lot of time in the air, though, don't they? In the Fast and Furious
but he's
films?
trying to clear the gridlock so his whole family
So
can
his-
like
so his
get
family
through
can get through,
because
yeah.
they can't all
Makes
have
sense.
flying cars, only some of them.
Okay.
so.
When's it out?
It's not out. It's not real.
Oh,
wow! What a real.
what was it?
Jerk.
Would you believe?
What is Gridlock Siege of Dom?
Flintlock Siege of Dawn. I'm really going to need you to keep up with the games that are coming out
Yeah,
because
that's-
every time I do one of these, you're like, what
What's
game is
that?
that? And I really need you to. Well,
Sorry.
obviously you're leaving
There's
now,
qu- it's
but
quite
I'll tell
often
Ben.
You know about those games, like because you've recorded your forecast, but we've not yet seen your forecast.
Yeah.
Well, it was out. It was on last week's podcast, but
Yeah, in this instance, actually, it's early July.
We should
so
have.
we
We
should
should
have
have
watched
seen
seen.
it,
Yeah,
so
we should
yeah.
really know
It's
by this
fine.
point.
But often that's what, it might be like the
Yeah.
third week of the month and you know what's coming out in August and we're
Mm.
like,
there's also a page on the spreadsheet.
Right.
I don't read that.
I don't even know what a spreadsheet is.
Yeah.
What is that?
Anyway,
stop
it's
parodying games that are
the game
crap
with
that
the
no
little
one
black
cares
fox.
about.
You know,
What?
the game with the little black fox that's coming out.
Tunic.
No,
The spirit one.
the spirit one.
Yeah.
sort of.
Never.
No,
Flintlock.
no, Flintlock, the one with the
With
little
Dominic,
fox that zips
and
through
then
the
they
sky.
fly.
Mhm. The one where I'm
With the
like,
cars.
I like the traversal in this
Yeah,
game.
yeah, yeah. The one
Right.
that every time it comes up, I say to
Deer
Peter
and Boy,
/
Boy
Ben.
Deer.
No,
The one with the cat in.
the one with
The big kitty little city
No.
one. No?
no.
You just
No.
got to be more specific.
Well,
I
there's
feel
not
like
many
there's a
big
lot of
games coming
crosswires
out
here
this
and it
month,
could
so
be...
this month's going to be a real
really
stinker for
difficult.
sponsors. I think, considering there's not many big games coming out.
Ben and
anyway,
Peter better have been saving some up. And
Yeah.
that would be terrible.
get on with the rest of the podcast.
We're not sponsored by Deer and Boy,
Big cat, little
Gridlock
fox.
Siege of Dom in Icterata.
Inictoretto. We are, of course, sponsored by wonderful patrons over at patreon.com/Team TripleJump. If you go there and support us, you'll get access to all manner of rewards, including accessing, bloody hell, asking questions. You're
Why
right.
didn't you?
You want to share with the
What?
class?
I just wrote it as is.
No, I
What?
know.
What?
What's?
What?
It's just funny that you put it in
I
brackets.
put it in brackets because it was not.
Siege
it's
of
not-
Dom.
Yeah, well, that's
Inictoretto.
'cause
it's-
I know that's how we've been saying it, but I didn't
Yeah,
think you
but I
actually
put it
written
in
like
brackets
that.
'cause
It's
that's
just-
how it's-
I just glanced down and saw the parentheses, and I thought it was funny. That's all. Sorry, you do continue. I
Don't
tried.
know.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Brian was just
Unbelievable.
laughing
Not
at
very
me, it's
professional, is it?
No.
Patreon.com/Team TripleJump. If you go there, you can ask questions on this podcast. You can get early access to episodes of Worst and Weirdest Games, exclusive access to episodes of Rules Boss and Main Menu, and there's all sorts of other tiers and rewards available as well. Go check it out. Thank you so much. There's a few places you can find us on the internet as well. TripleJ.mup. That's where you can locate our YouTube, our Twitter, our Facebook, everything that we do. TripleJumpShop.com if you'd like some sick merchandise. You're wearing a hoodie, Brian.
It's in his uniform.
It's in his work uniform, yes. And of course, once again, patreon.com/Team TripleJump. What's out this week? There's some stuff happening, yes?
Yeah, if you are a Patreon,
No.
you.
If you're the website
If you are-
Patreon,
If you're on the website Patreon, then guess what you've just received? An episode of Rules Boss. An exclusive
Ooh.
episode came out this week where Peter Austin from the Before Times
Love that guy.
played Crash
3
Warped with using voice controls with some interference from
Yeah.
with
Ben Rush.
hilarious consequences.
It's a good one.
Yes.
There's also a Worst Games Ever out. It was out on Friday, of course, for patrons, and Sunday for everyone else. That's tomorrow. Dukes of Hazzard 2, Daisy Dukes It Out.
This is our last one as well. Our
Yeah.
last Worst Games.
Yeah, we were in that one.
Mhm.
It was good and bad. It was good,
And
bad.
It was good and bad. Excellent. That's what's coming out. Go and watch it all. Amazing. Question 1 time, please.
It's from the Only Fody, who says, "Hey, Bap or Dab or whatever you're going by these days. So, recently, or rather in the last 45 days of our lives, PS Stars has been down. This means it has now exceeded the infamous PSN hack back in 2011, though it has now been fixed. Sony has chosen to stay rather quiet on the subject, other than we are working on it, since a month ago. Given that this is a relative niche issue, do you still think this is that this somewhat shows the true colours of Sony and how little they care about their loyal customers in quotes, the ones this who are the ones this exact program is for? And do you think that Sony would be as uncaring if it was other services they provided, as for example trophy support, store purchases, or our existing digital libraries? Thanks, and sorry for the long question."
Thanks.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
sorry for the long question.
Sorry
to
for the
you as
reading
well.
of the
For the
question.
short answer.
Yeah. So a bit of context here. If you, like me, had forgotten that PlayStation Stars even existed until this question came up, PlayStation Stars is the reward system they have in place. You can use your gaming skills to collect unique digital collectibles and earn rewards, complete campaigns, earn points, and show off your collectibles in a digital display case on the PlayStation app as a way of celebrating your love of play and PlayStation experiences.
And what's the name of the company again? Xbox Experience.
Yeah. So this is according to Push Square. After nearly a full month of downtime, Sony has announced its PS Stars rewards program is, quote, returning soon in phased regional rollouts.
Get in.
Whoa.
The mobile PS app is now displaying a new message when the PS Stars icon is selected on the home screen that reads, PlayStation Stars will be returning soon in phased regional rollouts.
I've just tried to look at my PlayStation Stars and on the app, and it says PlayStation Stars is currently experiencing issues.
Oh dear.
Yeah, it doesn't say that on mine either.
Thank you for your patience, and we look forward to welcoming you back. There have been contradicting reports from the PlayStation support team over whether points totals will have remained intact, and whether purchases made by members during the downtime will be reimbursed. It's worrying enough that there are just contradicting statements on that. Active users will likely be hoping for some sort of compensation due to the outage, but will have to wait until availability is rolled out to major territories and then compare and contrast points from before and after to see if much has changed. So, yes, it is concerning that there are any kind of contradicting reports as to whether people are going to have lost out on money or points, or whether their point scores have reset or something. That's a big problem if that happens. But also, to answer the OnlyFodies question, I do think that this kind of feels like they sort of don't seem to care that much about their own system.
Sony not caring about something that they made and
Huh?
they put the effort into. That's crazy. They never do that.
Yeah, making a semi-niche thing that's for a very specific type of gamer or member of their community, and then not really supporting it very much. That's a very unusual
sound right.
move.
So unusual.
I do think that if it was an issue with store purchases, or maybe not even trophy support, probably more likely trophy support they would care about. But yeah, store purchases or digital libraries that people already have on their console or their account, they would work a lot quicker to fix that. But the fact that they've not rushed to fix PlayStation Stars makes me wonder how many people are using it sort of actively. I know you don't really have to use it actively. It just sort of it's happening in the background. But how many people they have who are kind of checking in and engaging with that service.
The only time I ever think about it is when I accidentally get one, where it's like, you turned on your PlayStation 5.
Mm-hmm.
Here's a little bit of tap.
Link. Thanks. So it does make me wonder whether because obviously they'll have all the stats behind the scenes, whether they think I don't think people really care enough about this for us to dedicate huge amounts of resources to this. But also, what is this outage that it's taken a month to, even if they don't care that much? Normally, any kind of outage like this, apart from the hack that happened in 2011, tends to be resolved pretty quickly, even if it's for something that is, kind of small fry in terms of the overall collection of services that any company provides. It's very strange that it's taken them this long, and that there are still, that it's coming back in regional rollouts, and that they can't say for sure yet whether certain things are going to be maintained when it returns. It's very odd, and it just made me wonder what on earth has actually gone on here.
It is all very strange. I think that we were making a joke, obviously, that they would never do this, but it's very on brand for Sony to create something for players and be like, oh, we did this for you, the players, and then just completely ignore it and or just put no effort into it. Stars 8 out of 10 times was just buy a game, buy this game, buy this game.
Get some points.
Get some points, play this game. And it's okay, well, I don't have these games, so there's no point me checking in on Stars for the next few weeks because I don't have any of these games to play. And they were very rarely specific to the games that you owned. It wasn't oh, you've managed to get 10 trophies this week. Here's 150 points. It was Stars where you could use it to buy £5 gift vouchers and stuff, wasn't it? Yeah, but even then, like, it was very rare that they were actually like the point ones. It would be like, if you play all these games, you get a little Astrobot bit of tat to
Here's a Shuhei
store.
Yoshida.
Yeah, I don't actually even know how you see which ones you've got. Obviously, right now you can't because it's broken. But I wouldn't have even. I don't know how you see which little trophies you've got. For.
It says here a digital display case on the PlayStation app.
Well, yeah, maybe that's where it is, but I couldn't see it because it's broken. Sony have this terrible habit and this terrible reputation of just like giving us something and then half-assing it and then taking it away, and or hoping enough people stop using it that no one will notice if they just stop putting any effort in. They did it with this. They've done it with VR headsets. They've done it with the Vita. Yeah, exactly. Like, I was just trying to remember which one was which then. Yeah, it's just, it's on brand for them. And I think that the one thing about Sony is that it really does show how much effort they're willing to put in. Like, they know that they have sold more consoles than Xbox.
Yeah.
They know that they're winning on that space. And we've said this before, I don't feel like they put a lot of effort in at this point to keep their customers coming back. Like the fact we haven't got any Sony exclusive games coming out for the rest of the year, and none really on the horizon.
Horizon.
Get it?
That's one of them.
Yeah, it is. It is just, yeah, it's weird. And I think, like you say, the fact that like it's taken so long and it's still not working for something that is essentially a very simple concept by the looks of things is very strange.
Seems sus.
Does seem sus.
Yeah.
Sussy.
Hello, it's me, one of the 5 PlayStation Stars users. Do you have any questions for me? I'll be happy to answer them. I have a standing fortnightly reminder on my phone to check PlayStation Stars because I've had about 40 quid in gift vouchers from it so far. And I think everyone, once this goes back live in your region, should at least click on it and see how many points you've got. You can use it to buy a selection of games, but that is absolutely not worth it because they are full price in equivalent points terms. You can either buy a £5 voucher, region depending, or a £20 voucher. But if you save up for the £20 voucher, it is worth precisely 4 times as many points as £5 vouchers. Right. So don't bother waiting, because my logic has been, nobody uses this. They could pull this service any day now. For God's sake, as soon as you have enough points, spend them. And I do like to check in because without fail, every month with the PlayStation Plus games, they will give you 250 points to play one of the PlayStation Plus games from that month, which invariably means start it up and then you can delete it. And it's fine. Wait for it to pop up on your phone. And I don't really give a crap about the digital collectibles. They are nice but daft and weird. I have a few food ones. So some of them is like a dish of curry. And I don't really know why. The digital sort of shelf space that you get is not easily visible by anyone else. And the past couple of times I've gone in there to rearrange things, the app has crashed.
Great.
Which might be part of the reason why they're retooling it. There was a lot of scuttlebutt. Basically, I think it's mainly the subreddit specifically for PlayStation Stars that has been screaming about this the loudest. And there's only about 15,000 people in there, which is probably why this is such a low priority for them. Because I completely agree. If this was any other service they did, they would not hear the end of it. But I think PlayStation Stars is so low priority that they were in no rush to explain what was going on. But a lot of the scuttlebutt was finally, because they made this promise all the way back in 2022, that there might be some integration with the PS5 natively, so you could actually view your trinkets and show other people, and people could see them, because that's what they said would happen. Currently, there's no PlayStation Stars on the PS5 or the PS4. It's all done on the app, which feels even weirder.
Yeah.
So that's pretty daft as well. However, there is clearly, at the moment at least, no sign of that being what they've been working on. Loads of people were contacting customer support and they had no idea what was going on either. It was basically just complete radio silence. And the silver lining was, well, maybe they're doing big maintenance for something significant. But it doesn't seem that that's been the case. I will say, though, according to some people in some regions where it's already rolled back out, they said that points for purchases they have made since it went down are reflected in their account. So may vary depending on where you are, but it certainly seems like it's not the worst thing in the world. However, this definitely does still play into the narrative that Sony are increasingly not really giving a flip about their core audience. And I appreciate, as the Only Fody says, this is a very small niche of their core audience. So this is a very small group of people that they should be paying attention to. However, it's not necessarily all doom and gloom, because it does appear to be coming back. They haven't quietly just canned it and not said anything about it. We do have the 2 new presidents in charge now, so maybe the ship will start to turn and we'll see more positive things. And they announced this week that they will be attending Tokyo Game Show for the first time since 2019. So things might actually be starting to shift. We may see some more positivity towards their core audience and specifically their fan base with the 2 new people in charge. But this whole thing has been a complete disaster, and nobody has explained anything at any point. They've only acknowledged it. Now they're starting to turn things back on, which is really strange. It's just strange. Really, really bizarre. I don't get it.
This is why competition is a good thing, and we don't want some sort of horrible homogenous monopoly. Who was it? It was someone quite big recently said, we need to work towards there basically being one console and everything being on it. It was like, was it Phil or
sounds like something Phil would say?
Someone quite. It was like the CEO of either a major publisher or one of the someone high up in the console companies said, yeah, the best thing for gamers would be if like all games were available on essentially one piece of hardware. That would be terrible, because there would be a single console provider who would not have anyone who they're competing against. Sony at the moment, they're able to be complacent and, we're not just talking about stars here, but as we were saying, kind of try things, not really support them very much, show kind of a disregard for their core audience, and they can kind of get away with it because they are still ultimately the top dog in the console sphere. So it's good when you have competition and people have to actually behave as well as their competitors. And that's why I'm glad Xbox continues to do things like Game Pass and things like that. Not that PlayStation will ever do the equivalent, but like for like.
Well, now it's time to do a segment that I thought we could try. Seeing as it's your last podcast, I thought we'd do something a bit special.
Okay. And did you get us a cake?
No.
Oh.
But I did get you a new segment.
That's not a segment of cake.
Can we eat it?
A news segment?
Is there
Did you hear that, Brian? She got you a news segment.
It's weird news. No.
What?
Not yet. Later. This is called What We Playin.
It doesn't sound edible. It's What We Playin time. Time to talk about the games what we have been playing. Brian Bumpiss, for the final time, what have you been playing?
I played a couple of things this week. I have continued to play the Beyond Good and Evil Anniversary Edition. I finished it. I stopped to smell every single rose, deeply inhaled every scent.
Pollen.
Pollen, yes. I then restarted because there's a trophy for doing, it has a speedrun clock that they've just added as a mode. You can just enable that, and if you do a speed run, you don't have to do it in a certain time, just play with the clock on. You get a trophy for doing that, and mopped up the last couple of things. So played that, finished that for the second time this week, and we'll be streaming it next week. But also, here's a completely left field choice from me.
Go on.
I, for a very long time, have had a very strange itch to play a Ridge Racer game. From the first PlayStation, as we all call it, the PlayStation first. When I was younger, I had a copy of the fourth Ridge Racer game, which strangely was called Ridge Racer Type 4. I don't know if that's some sort of car pun, if a Type 4 is a something in the car world.
Let's pretend that it is.
People.
It is, yes. And it has like an incredible soundtrack, and I've always remembered the soundtrack. We had it, as I say, I had it when I was a kid, and didn't play it very much, wasn't very good at it, and we probably traded it in after like 6 months. But I've always remembered how good the music was, and it has this really nice vibe to it. Like, even though it's just a kind of blocky PS1 game, it has this kind of interesting... it's very difficult to kind of put your finger on the aesthetic, but it's very Namco. It's very Japanese.
Very arcade.
Yeah, it's very arcadey. All of that. And I heard just a track from the soundtrack earlier this week on YouTube, and I was like, "Oh man, that game!" So I legally downloaded it from a place where you can legally download ISOs.
That's really good, Brian.
Yeah.
It's especially
good for
unique
you.
because everywhere else it's illegal to do
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
when you wouldn't.
But I
Yeah.
did find the one legal place to do
Good.
so.
Great
Yeah.
stuff, man.
And I've played that through, and I had a really good, like a surprisingly good time with it. I thought it'd be like just a fun couple of hours doing a bit of driving, but actually I was like, this is great.
This is sick.
I've had a really good time drifting around, listening to this like 90s kind of, don't ask me what genre it is, 90s music.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And,
Ridge Racer.
yeah, Ridge Racer.
Remember that one?
I do. I don't know what game that was, but it was not this one. It was several games later, I think.
Yeah.
So that was a surprising thing to do and enjoy as much as I did. But I did have a really good time, and I've even thought about maybe streaming it as a one-off because
Whoa.
it was that good. But yeah, had a really good time with Ridge Racer Type 4.
Nice.
Ashton.
I've played a few things this week. The first thing I played is Fallout 76. Played
yeah?
more of that game. It's big, lots of stuff to do, constantly getting distracted. Will we ever finish it? I'm not sure. But the main things I've played this week are, you may remember last week, I put out a plea. Please help me find where I can play Papa's Pizzeria.
Yeah.
Well, the gang, I mean, some people did roast me in the comments, which fair enough. I could have probably spent more time Googling it. It was a very spur of the moment conversation we had. But I have been playing them this week.
Oh my God.
I have played Papa's Pizzeria,
Whoa.
Papa's Sushiria,
Whoa.
Papa's Taco Mia, which I think
Sushiria?
Taco Mia and Sushi Ria.
Sushiria and Wingeria and Hot Dogeria.
Right. We did diarrhea last
Yeah,
week.
we
didn't
did. But hot doggeria does
Yeah,
sound
yeah,
like a
yeah.
really
Yeah,
bad
yeah.
medical condition.
Dog.
I've been playing those this week. My favourite of them all is the Taco Mia.
Yeah.
That's the one I've played for the longest.
Okay.
I'm
Why
on-
is that one Mia and all the others are Ria?
Yeah, that's my confusion.
I don't know. But it is
Taco
Taco
Mia.
hyphen Mia. And it's Hot Dog hyphen Ria. But all the other ones are Pizzeria, Sushiria, Wingeria. There's Burgeria, there's Scooperia.
Right.
Scooperia.
I can't remember I don't think it's Donutteria. That doesn't sound right.
That's crazy. I wouldn't do that.
But yeah, I really enjoyed playing Taco Mia and the Wingeria one.
What score would you give it?
Out of
10.
10, it's like a solid 7.
Solid 7. That's
Yeah,
good.
yeah.
I'm gonna do a review corner on it. In a
Yeah,
minute.
yeah. The wing one has like mini games in between each day where you can get like things to go in your restaurant to make people wait longer or like be less upset if you make them wait. But I realized like when I was clicking through and playing different ones that there's like a very clear like timeline of progression of like how well they play or how like interesting the other stuff is in it. But the taco one's really been living rent free in my brain this week. And
So remind me, are these flash games? Did you say?
yeah. But you can buy them on your phone.
Oh, right.
For like £1 or like
download them as
£2.
apps.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So you can have them as an app, which I didn't know until someone yelled at me in the comments. But yes, I've been playing those this week. That's pretty much it. I've
Nice.
just every spare moment I've been just on this website playing a flash game from like 2008, and I've been loving it. Loving it.
Good.
What have you been playing?
I read a bit more of my book.
We didn't ask about books. We asked about video
Do you want
games.
these, nerd?
Yeah, go on then.
No, I can't see without them.
I read a little bit more of the book and the Borderlands book, Dead or Alive. Still great, enjoying that. I'm about halfway through it now. It's good. And apart from that, I finished Lake.
Oh, yeah.
Not a very long game, but finally finished it.
No.
It was good. I enjoyed it. It's still, I can't believe how badly it runs on PlayStation 5. It's
That's
kinda-
crazy.
It
that
is
it runs
mad.
bad.
Just chugs, loads of pop in, and
Mad.
there are some just like presentation stuff, which I imagine also looks a bit basic on PC as well. Like when there's a shot of them driving in a car, I don't think the steering wheel turns when they go around corners, and they don't look when they go around corners either. They just stare directly ahead.
Yeah.
That's how I drive.
Yeah,
As I go
yeah.
around corners.
Lip sync is basically non-existent. That kind of stuff. Really lovely. I enjoyed it a lot.
Play the Christmas DLC or
Well, this is it. I didn't
Save
delete
it for
it yet
December.
because I saw that it said that there's Christmas DLC on the main menu, but I don't know if it's included in PlayStation Plus Extra.
I don't know.
And also, there was no link to buy it on the actual within the actual game itself. So I
No.
need to do further investigation. But I feel like my gaming drought is nearing an end now because I'm going to try and smash through the rest of Wonderlands, and then I think I'm going to play Diablo 3.
Just remembered another game I played, but do carry on.
That's it. I think I'm going to play Diablo 3.
Oh, okay.
What's the other game you've remembered?
Yesterday, I start talking of games that I'm going to stream. I started that Clone Wars re-release port onto PS5. There was a PS2 Clone Wars game, which I never played, but I do have a copy of because someone sent it in ages ago. And I downloaded it, and I thought it was a kind of a vehicular focused game, well, exclusively vehicular all the way through. And like within minutes after driving a tank, I was playing as Mace Windu, and I was like, right, I'm going to stop now, and I'm going to stream this blind. Because it was
cool.
Really, no, not too cool.
Okay.
It was really kind of wonky and weird. It controlled a bit like the VR the dancing VR game, the Star Wars.
Oh yeah, the Kinect one.
Yeah, Star Wars Kinect, not VR. I didn't mean that. Motion controls. There was a bit in there, wasn't there, where it's like lightsaber.
Oh
thing,
yeah.
And your characters just sort of, they'll like fight in a straight line and then turn and then fight in a straight line again.
Yeah.
Kind of controls like that, but with a controller in your hand.
Brilliant.
So yeah, played that last night and I was like, I'm not playing anymore. We're going to play this live. We'll flip it. We'll do it live.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Excellent.
Now it's time for question 2.
Go on then.
Comes from Beezus. Hi, Bap. So I bought a Switch Lite rather than a dockable Switch by the logic that I would only play the Switch in handheld mode, so a Lite would work just fine. However, now, after a few months of playing, I'm regretting my decision because the games available all seem to fit into one of 3 categories. 1, a port of a home console game that either doesn't run well or doesn't control well because it's designed for a proper controller. 2, a crappy mobile game port. Or 3, a game that's made for the Switch but was really designed with docked mode and Switch Pro controller in mind for the full experience. Because of this, the Switch Lite feels rather redundant and very few games are really fun to play on it. So my question is this even? Is the idea of a devoted handheld console with games made specifically to be played solely as handheld games, 3DS, PS Vita, dead and buried? Will we, from now on, only ever see handheld consoles that stream PC games or rely on inferior ports of home console games, or will dedicated handheld gaming ever make a comeback? Thanks, and sorry for the really long question.
That's all right.
Holy Beezus.
2 sorries. You need to
Stop
say sorry,
apologising.
gang.
Just send us single word questions.
Game.
Vita?
Question mark.
Switch?
Yeah.
Well, certainly there are and always will be a few little diamonds in the rough, which apparently is not what that phrase means. Apparently everyone misuses that phrase.
Really?
But
Did they misuse it in Aladdin?
Yeah, well, yeah. I can't remember what it actually means, but yeah.
I'll find out for you, Brian.
Thanks. I'm sure I read that somewhere. That's not actually what that means, but everyone has just decided that's. Anyway, my point is there will always be a few titles that probably hit exactly the spot that you want, which is like it was made for a handheld for the Switch, and if you do some deep digging, you will find it. However, in terms of the mainstream, I agree. Actually, I think we are now at a point where, certainly with regards to handhelds that come out from Nintendo, Sony, or if Microsoft ever decides to do one, you're only really ever going to see, I think, ports for the most part, or games that don't run as well on the Switch or were made for the Switch, but kind of with docked mode in mind. It was kind of a technical necessity once upon a time that handhelds like your DS's and your Game Boy Advances, because they were completely incapable of running console versions of games, that's why we had these special, unique, interesting kind of handheld specialized versions of games coming out on those devices. But because we've now reached a point where handhelds can sort of almost play ported versions of like main home consoles, that's kind of what they're going for now. I think, it's almost like as technology has improved, in some ways the experience on handhelds has gotten worse, or at least we've moved away from its roots, where there are some really good games out there on classic handheld consoles, but because they can now sort of run quote unquote normal games, flat games, home console gamers, then that seems to be what the developers are aiming for. So yeah, it's almost like we're moving backwards there in a sense.
Got a definition.
Yeah.
Diamond in the rough. A person who has talent or other good qualities, but who is not polite, educated, socially skilled, etc. So it's sort of a backhanded compliment.
Yeah.
Like, you've got something, but you need a lot of polish.
But people kind of make it to mean the occasional little...
Yeah, best of a bad bunch.
Yeah, gemstone found within a great big pile of coal or something. Yeah.
Matthews?
Yes, I think that even Nintendo have sort of given up making games for the handheld consoles now. I do agree, like, entirely that a lot of Nintendo's games that they bring out themselves, I think very few of them now are designed to and run well / play well on a handheld console. I think that the Switch Lite was a great idea, and at the time it was released, there was loads of games I think that were on it that benefited being on a handheld console, that didn't kind of make you have to really squint to read the font of the text, or didn't kind of make things hard to see because it was all right in handheld mode. But I do think nowadays, I think you're completely right, Beezus, that yes, there aren't that many games coming out for the Switch that are designed with handheld mode in mind. All of the recent kind of big announcements coming from Nintendo have been like, you can now play this console game on Switch now. It doesn't run as well, doesn't look as good, and you'll struggle to play it on a Switch Lite, but it will. Hey, it's coming out. You're welcome. I think that of recent memory, in terms of like games that would work really well on handheld mode, really the only two I can kind of pick out are the Princess Peach game that came out, Princess Peach Showtime, which is like entirely a side scroller kind of situation, and also the Super Mario RPG remake, because those games like that, especially RPG, was designed like with that in mind, I think. But it's really hard like nowadays to make a game for a handheld, like you were saying, because games have to be bigger, and they have to be better, and they have to match what's going on in the industry. And a lot of games coming out on Switch are games that are also coming out everywhere else at the same time, and doesn't really leave a lot of room for it to be designed with those in mind. I think it would be great to see Nintendo and like lean further into the handheld side of things, but I also think a lot of their best-selling games have been games that are almost comparable to the bigger games coming out on more powerful consoles, like your Zeldas, because those games, yeah, they do run on the Switch, but I personally would hate to play those games in handheld mode. I feel like you don't get the full experience when it's just on your little tiny screen that you're trying to play with. So I'm hopeful that when the Switch 2 comes out, doesn't help you because you have a Switch Lite, but when the Switch 2 comes out, then we'll see a few more games coming in that are more designed for handheld. But if you have a console that can do both, a lot of the times they're going to aim for the optimal experience, that being docked and playing on the PC, on the TV, rather than handheld. So
if you delve slightly further away from the mainstream and pick up something like the Evercade, that mostly is just you can replay older games from decades ago, but occasionally they make new games for things like the Evercade. So there are handhelds out there that do have new stuff made exclusively for them, but it's not. We're not talking about Nintendo or Sony here. We're talking about very kind of specialist hardware.
Yeah, I think it's very unlikely that we're going to get any more dedicated handheld devices. I think people have not been spoiled, but now that we've had a taste of what it's like to either stream a home console game via something like the Portal or your phone or, a Steam Deck or something, and even the Switch, where you can take it home and dock it, I feel like nothing is really going to measure up to that. The only audience I could see that won't care are children. And children are a big audience. And so there could be, that's the only avenue I could ever really see any of the major companies coming at it from. And if it's going to be any of them, it's going to be Nintendo, because that's a sizable market, and little Tommy and Susie don't care what the graphics look like necessarily. They just want to play Pokemon or whatever. And, there we are. That's the end of that. However, you do also have to consider the fact that making games is getting more and more and more expensive. So the idea of a PlayStation and Xbox, or even a Nintendo, splitting their focus between home console and portable, especially when Nintendo's already doing a what's it called, hybrid device, and Sony and PlayStation are both pushing streaming and remote playing and that kind of stuff. That doesn't feel particularly likely. We've seen it as recently as, I mean, if you go back 10 years, you can see it with the Vita, where Sony had maybe a handful of first-party exclusives for that device, and they were all developed by sort of B-team first parties. They weren't, the big gemstones of the shining jewels of their catalog of first-party developers, as well as some third-party stuff as well. And then they sort of abandoned that. And you can see it with the PSVR 2 as well, which I think we're all agreed is not going to get any more exclusive first-party games. And if you're thinking you're going to get a Naughty Dog game on PSVR 2, you're dreaming, because they don't want to split their focus. Why would you want to have an entirely new platform where you have to make games for it, but then you also, like, how do you decide what's most important? Obviously, it's going to be the one that's making all the money, and it's just, they're just not going to do it anymore. I can't see them deciding that is a worthwhile use of studio resources, money, etc. Because it costs that much. It's always cost bloody loads, but now it's untenable, really. I suppose the only real hope for portable devices going forward is a dockable thing, something that can do it all, because it just doesn't make financial sense, I don't think, unfortunately.
It's almost like so in the height of handheld games, we had these fun made for handheld experiences, and as that tech has improved and now they can run slightly higher end stuff, and that's the way that development has gone. At the same time as in the height of handheld consoles, you had mobile phones which couldn't really play games at all other than Snake or little bits like Tetris or puzzle games like that. And now technology improved that much on mobile that you can have what would traditionally considered your classic handheld style games on your DS or whatever.
Your Papa's Pizzeria.
Your Papa's Pizzeria you can now play on your phone.
Yeah.
And that really, I think, is now the new sort of handheld portable console in the traditional sense.
Yeah, it's a different style of play for sure. But like, as far as adults are concerned, if they want to play something on the go, then your phone can do that. If you rewind to the PSP, there were 2 Grand Theft Auto games on it.
Yeah.
And a Monster Hunter game. Even a few years later on the Vita, that was unthinkable. For Rockstar to divert the resources to develop But
I also think that, like, when you look back, a lot of the games that were coming out for the Wii also then had an entirely different version of that same game on the DS, and the same thing with PlayStation. The games that came out on PlayStation 3 also came out on the PSP and the Vita. Were like entirely different games, but had the same name because they were designed with that in mind. But like you say, there's no reason to do that anymore.
It's that died off like 15 years ago.
I think it's because
they just stopped doing them.
They're so close together now, like in terms of like what the handheld can do and what the console can do, that it's almost like it'll run worse on the handheld, but we don't have to make a second game because it at least will run on the handheld.
Yeah, it probably takes less work and resources to force a console game to work on a handheld than it does to make a whole separate game on the handheld from scratch.
Yeah, I can also guarantee that if you go back and look at who developed Call of Duty, Modern Warfare for the Wii, etc., those studios won't exist anymore.
No.
They just don't exist anymore, and there's no desire, there's no call for that, there's no money for that. I mean, we've heard that Xbox is going to put Call of Duty on Nintendo platforms for the next 10 years, but the Switch can't run Modern Warfare 3, and the infrastructure on which Modern Warfare 3 is built, which is a nightmare platform where it asks you to download a million different things. Can you imagine that?
The Switch will catch fire.
The Switch's store. Like, how's that going to work? That's going to be awful to use. So, while there are some things that are going to be similar soon, maybe I genuinely don't think that outside of the Playdate, is that what it's called? The little device with the crank.
The Playdate.
Outside of some experimental stuff and the Evercade and things, I don't see any dedicated handheld devices coming out that aren't for streaming or aren't basically an Xbox Series S, but with a screen built in.
Yeah.
You know, I just don't. I'd love to see it, but I don't think it's going to happen, unfortunately.
Yeah.
If it did, it'd be a bit strange, though.
It would be, and it would probably make the headlines.
It would, and those two things together, that would make it weird news.
Strange headlines. It's weird news time for some weird video game news. Remember, if you'd like to submit some weird video game news to us, you can do so under the relevant social media post that goes out on a Tuesday. However, if you'd like to guarantee a shout out at this point in the podcast, you need to go to patreon.com/Team TripleJump and join us as a podcast producer at the appropriate tier, just like
Chip Thompson's Thumbs,
GY Goliath,
Nexus Polaris,
Nicole Hansen,
Andy Scott,
Blake Thomas,
Kyle Gary,
Eric Siu,
Shaman Nomo,
Great Giggity,
Melody Elbonet,
Katie Garrett,
Hugh Joss,
Gabrielle Philippink,
and BMBV, Big Money Boggy Vegas. Thank you, podcast producers. Thank you so much. Got some news there, Brian.
Got some
I've got some news here, Brian. It's sent to us from Aaron Pristelsky at Aaron Pristelsky on Twitter. No relation, and not top fan because it's Twitter, not Facebook. Right. This is according to readwrite.com. Write spelled WRITE, not read correctly. Readwrite.
Okay.
Because as you're about to see, there is at least one typo
they can't read
in
right
this article. Written by Paul McNally, the gaming editor, and it's been fact-checked by Sam Shedden.
Great job, Sam.
Good job, everyone.
But not proofread by Sam Shedden. Wars are not generally... here's a headline. After 34 years, the Gulf War Game Boy finally leaves active service and returns to Nintendo HQ.
Bless it.
Oh. Have you seen the Gulf War Game Boy, Ashton? I know Dick has because he was there.
I was, yeah. It's my Game Boy.
That's horrible.
Yeah.
What's happened to it?
Well, I'll tell you. Wars are not generally full of stories that can make you smile, but the tale of the Gulf War Game Boy has always...
Speak for yourself. I love war.
Yeah, has always interested many. Having launched in 1989, less than 1 year later, one particular Game Boy found itself in a war zone, presumably in the hands of young American soldiers who'd been deployed during Desert Storm. Its owner, Stephen Scoggins, a registered...
Sick name.
Good name. A registered nurse from Oklahoma who was stationed in the Middle East, told The Verge that the machine was damaged in a fire when the tent burned down. There had been a bombing at the location, but it was the dyer that damaged it. That's a typo.
Come on, Sam.
It was the fire that damaged it. Stephen originally sent his damaged Game Boy to Nintendo Power magazine in 1991, and they sent him a replacement for his service. Somewhere along the way, the Game Boy, which incredibly still works, ended up at the flagship Nintendo store in New York City's Rockefeller Center on display and became the subject of many a photo and stories of urban legend. However, it seems to have now finally finished its tour of duty, and a shop worker confirmed that it had been sent to Nintendo's main headquarters in Washington State. I've repaired and modded a fair few Nintendo Game Boys in my time, and they've always been resilient little things that could often be brought back to life. The screens were always the issue, and this one seems to have taken most of its damage on the back and sides of the case, but it's still remarkable that the heat did not kill it off completely.
In the dyer.
In a dyer, yeah.
There's a dyer.
There's been a terrible dyer. Call the dyer
Somebody
brigade.
called it. So you beat me to it.
Sorry. Hopefully this...
Re-roo.
Hopefully this little piece of unique gaming history won't just find its way onto somebody's shelf at home or be locked inside a store cupboard somewhere.
Ben shelf.
I want it in Ben's shelf.
A celebrity
Not my
Game Boy. As a display piece covering not only the Gulf War but significant gaming history, we would love to see this particular Game Boy on permanent display somewhere soon. Come on, Nintendo, do the right thing.
Sounds like it was on permanent display
Yeah.
for
Yeah, it
quite a
was.
while.
I thought it was.
I feel
Now
like that
it's gone.
article doesn't really, it sort of assumes everyone knows what this is, and it doesn't big up enough the fact that this went to the Gulf War,
Yeah.
It was in a terrible dyer,
Yes.
And there were bombs dropping.
Yeah.
It came home from the Gulf War, and it still worked,
Yeah.
and to this day, still works.
They
That's
kept
the
it
point here.
Plugged into the mains, didn't
Yeah,
they?
they had to because the battery wasn't, the battery power wasn't working anymore.
Yeah,
Um,
but it still turned on and functioned.
But yeah,
so
plugged
you
into the
could
mains, the
go and
screen was
see it.
on, and it could just.
It's
run.
cool. So
Yeah.
cool.
Mm.
Mm.
I have some news. It was submitted by Cameron Keyword on Twitter and Sergio Ivan YB
No relation.
on Facebook. No relation.
Yib.
Yib.
Your boy.
Comes from IGN by Wesley Yin Poole. Man sentenced to 4 months in prison for carrying a 6-inch master sword in public. Claimed it was a fidget.
Oh.
Yeah.
A man was sentenced to 4 months in prison for carrying a 6-inch master sword in public. Did you?
6 inches? That's like that, isn't it? Anyone? No? Yeah.
I'm not.
Yeah, Brian.
Not dignifying that with a response. As reported by Eurogamer, 48-year-old Anthony Bray of Nuneaton in Warwickshire, England, was spotted carrying a replica of the iconic weapon from Nintendo's Legend of Zelda series openly in the local town centre. Warwickshire police spotted Bray on June 8th via CCTV walking down the street with something in his hand. Bray was said to have approached officers with the item visible in his hand, at which point he was arrested as he was carrying a bladed article. Bray subsequently claimed the Master Sword was a fidget, something to keep his hands busy even, that he had bought online. But police said that because it was a sharply pointed item, it could be used as a weapon and put others in fear of it being used against them. The police said the Master Sword was inside a sheath and could be released with the press of a button. Despite admitting that the Master Sword could be perceived as threatening if someone else saw it, Bray insisted during his interview that he would not have used it as a weapon, the police said. Bray was sentenced on June 28th and given a 4-month prison sentence, as well as ordered to pay a victim's surcharge of £154.
You've got a licence for breaking the law.
I don't know who the
Who are
victim
the
was.
victims? The police?
The police? I don't know. Sergeant Spellman of the Patrol Investigations Unit commented, "We take a zero tolerance tolerance to bladed articles in public, and Bray has fallen afoul of this. It is possible to find fidget toys that aren't 6-inch blades. It is possible not to walk down the street holding them out in front of you. With a bit more self-awareness, Bray could have avoided contact with us completely."
I
mean, that's the sword.
I'm so conflicted.
You definitely
over
could
this.
kill someone with it.
Because you could, and there is a real problem with knife crime in the UK, and that's why there's a zero tolerance policy. But also, he might genuinely not have been. He's an idiot for walking around with it out.
Yeah.
But to just suddenly, I don't know anything about this man.
I would just assume
I don't know what his mental health is like. I don't know what if he's got any previous offences.
What his attitude was like as he was being arrested.
But to suddenly just, in my head, I've got a picture, which may be incorrect, of a man who wanted to fiddle with something, got a geeky thing,
just like
walked
pulling the
around
sword
with it,
out of the sheath.
absent-mindedly was just mucking about, and then suddenly has been chucked in prison for 4 months.
I mean, to give him 4 months as well immediately. Again, I know they have to have a zero tolerance policy for knife crime. As you say, Dick, there's a huge problem with it in the UK and around the world. So maybe it is just a first offence, you go to jail for some time. Like there's no quibble. You don't get like a suspended sentence. But I think in this case, this is why judges exist, because they can then we don't have to just do everything by the book. A judge can say, right, that was really stupid. Do not do that again. It's been destroyed. Do not carry one of those. And everyone else reading this story, don't be carrying around this kind of thing. 4 months suspended sentence or whatever. But to put him in jail seems a bit.
It feels like something else must have happened.
Yeah.
It feels like we're missing a part of a story.
There's got to be something we don't know, because that feels like an overreaction, even if he should not have been walking around with a blade.
Realistically, you could say, it's a knife, but also you could say it's a letter opener, because it's about the same size as most letter openers are as well.
The thing is, if you were walking around with a letter opener, I think you probably would still be arrested.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know how to feel about this.
What if I just bought my Zelda sword from the shop and I was walking to my car to take it home?
Blade out
and up, and directly point it at myself.
Where if you can prove that you've just bought something, because like how would you ever buy a kitchen knife? Or it would be in a packet presumably.
Yeah, you wouldn't walk around like Wolverine.
Yeah, but still,
it's semantics, and I don't know what the semantics are. I don't know enough about it. On principle, I feel for the guy, but also I don't know what the situation was, so it's difficult to assess. So weird that it's Zelda related, though.
Yeah.
Weird news.
I've got some weird news as well. This comes from Johnny Mac at Johnny Mac 13 on Twitter. no relation, and not on Facebook at all.
I think it was actually submitted on Facebook.
Bottom fan.
I had a look on Facebook. I couldn't see it. If you sent it on Facebook, I apologise. I did check, but I couldn't see it.
It's hard because Facebook now doesn't let you see the articles.
you have
it
to
just
say all
it's
comments
the link.
first, and it doesn't
Oh,
show
that's
the
true.
article,
Yeah, I may not have been looking at all the comments. It just,
It
stupid.
just top comments for some reason.
Facebook
Stupid.
works so good.
You're going to have a look for
I'm
it.
going to look.
Thank
But
you.
you carry on.
This is from the Metro, written by Game Central. I hate this when websites are all sort of absorbed by each other, and you go to the Metro and you get an article from a different web. Kotaku does this all the time. Yahoo does this all the time as well. Man wins video game tournament and immediately wishes he hadn't.
Kyle Schoen on
Kyle
Facebook.
Schoen. Thank you, Kyle.
Not a top fan yet.
It's a top fan.
Keep
in my
working on it,
eyes.
Kyle.
The winner of a Mortal Kombat esports competition is now more than £1,500 out of pocket as he realises it would have been cheaper if he'd lost. There's a lot of money to be won in esports nowadays, with many prize pools being $1 million or more, but a lot of smaller events have more modest prizes. For example, the CEO 2024 Fighting Game Championships in Daytona Beach, USA was offering just $565 for the winner in each of its categories. That's still a fair chunk of cash, though, and when contestant Rez Dialogue beat his opponent Rewind NV, can we just use real names, please?
Yeah.
He was so elated, he threw his chairs outside the wrestling ring they were in, which broke a $3,000 light fixture that he now has to pay for.
Oh no.
Res
Have you
Dialogue.
seen the videos?
Yeah, I've got the GIF at the top.
Yeah.
Oh.
He just launches his chair. I thought he lost at first, the way he just launches that chair.
Oh, for God's sake.
I don't know why he'd throw it out the ring. That's stupid. Res Dialogue was told he'd have to pay for the light, and he's already stated on Twitter that he'll take responsibility for the damage, which implies he'll be almost £2,000 out of pocket for proving he's the best Mortal Kombat player around. The organizer of CEO was pretty laid back about the incident, perhaps because at that point Res Dialogue had already agreed to pay for the incident. And then there's an embedded tweet from CEO Gaming. At Res Dialogue stamps his ticket to the grand finals 3-1 against Rewind in #MK1 at CEO 2024. Also, Dialogue, please keep the chairs inside the ring. Thanks, is what they tweeted.
Wow.
Despite his outburst, Res Dialogue is known for his positive attitude, celebrating the success of other finalists and trying his best to promote the tournament and
why did
Mortal
he throw that
Kombat
chair?
in general.
Why did he throw that chair? What's the reason he threw the chair for?
Throwing chairs in elation or frustration has become a bit of a trend in recent years.
Oh, brilliant.
Including
Has it?
one incident in 2024 when Hungrybox threw his chair into the crowd.
Oh
Jesus
my God.
Christ!
What's wrong with you nerds?
If
4
I
months
ever
in jail.
If I ever enter a competition and I win, I will launch the chair. Just in honor of this guy.
Okay.
I will launch the chair as far as I physically can, swing it around like it's a
Hammer throw.
hammer throw, to see how far I can get it.
That opening sentence of there's a lot of money's been made in esports these
But
days.
not here.
Reminds me of I saw my grandma recently, and she said, "Oh yes, and what's this? The games thing, and they call it sports. They call it sports." There must have been a slow day on BBC News, and like they did like a 5-minute package on Korean esports or something.
Yeah.
She'd watched it and was outraged, and she's going, "And they make money on it, and they call it sports." I was like, "Yeah,
That's fair.
it's a huge
They make
money
some of them
maker.
make an ungodly amount of money
Yeah,
on it. I
it's
mean, I know it
mental.
is like a skill thing, and like these people do train to win, but some of the like cash prizes are astronomical in the how
I
much they get.
really want to get esports, but there's something about its presentation and the attitude surrounding it that I find wholly, it's not necessarily the right word, cringeworthy. I find it a bit embarrassing. I get kind of secondhand embarrassment watching them come out in their football
Yeah.
shirts and
My
cheering.
and they're
favorite,
presented, they're e-athletes, and it's like, I
Favorite
don't know about that. Can we come up with a different word?
my favorite thing about esports, and when I used to work in it would always be the thing that would make me absolutely die, and we'd all take the mick, is when they'd get the like promo videos for the teams, and at the end they'd have them all like do this.
Yeah, what's that?
And it was so good.
The
and
arms
then, like,
crossed,
oh.
like they're Formula One drivers.
oh, it was just
I
so
do
good.
really like listening to esports commentary though. But like normally two guys, not always guys, but sometimes, just getting really, really excited, going, "Oh, he's going to wait for the cooldown. Oh, amazing play. Oh, but is it going to be quick with the reflexes? Like just."
It's crazy that they just like know everything that's going
Yeah.
on. I can't even pay
they know
attention to
all
one
the
thing at a time.
stats, what's good against what.
Ben
Yeah.
and Peter did some esports commentary
did
for
actually, yeah.
Yogscast.
Yeah.
It was for WWE 2K23. but even so.
Was it Ben and Peter? Because they were in silly costumes.
That's true. It was, what's he called?
Colin Coleshaft Oblivion.
Yeah, and Brian Butterfield, I think.
But yeah,
I think Brian Butterfield was there. Maybe?
Was it Butterfield?
Who was it?
It was Brian something, yeah.
I don't remember his name.
It's difficult to know for sure. Anyway, it was a while ago. But maybe it's just because esports are entirely focused on... Sorry, I wasn't about to...
I'm sorry, I thought I was ready. I was like, oh God,
I picked up my paper.
He's leaving us behind again.
There's just... I love it in principle, but I find its presentation kind of embarrassing, and I wish they played games that I cared about. If they got that wild about Crash Team Racing, or that's part of the reason why I like watching GDQ and SGDQ, because that's the kind of commentary and competitiveness that I find really interesting. But like the games that are esports, I'm just so uninterested in.
Well, I've watched like here and there the odd 5-minute burst of Tekken esports. Just if it happens to come up on my Twitter feed or something, I'll click play and watch it, because I have enough knowledge of Tekken to be like, okay. But that's the only reason I'm at all familiar with how these things are commentated, and it's wild. But I agree. I would far rather that games I'm really into had a huge esports scene.
Even like Call of Duty esports, which I think are a little closer to what would appeal to me. It just looks like robots are playing it, and it's like it's so unrecognizable from what I enjoy that it's like I'm not really getting anything out of this.
That's true.
I'd much rather, my dream esport, right, is to have like Shrek the Third, the video game, set up on 2 screens, and these 2 whiz kids race to finish it first.
They do races at GDQ.
Yeah. I love that stuff. If there was a huge cash prize for that, in a non-relaxed environment, I'd love to see who loses their mind and throws chairs out of the ring and who can finish Shrek the fastest. That's way more interesting to me than Overwatch or MOBAs and...
There are sometimes they do really interesting races at GDQ with certain games where it's like they use a randomizer where like items get moved around in the game and you have to just find them, or like know what the best route to take, or you get like a bingo card and you both have 2 separate random placements on a bingo card of like, speak to this guy, get 200 gold, do all these things, and you can make a line of what you think the best route is of like, you choose like which ones you want to tick off. So there's all sorts of tactical stuff, decisions to be made.
I love that stuff.
Yeah.
There's some great Dark Souls randomizer mods as well, where you watch a stream of someone doing that, and they'll potentially find the end game item in the first chest, and then they just finish the game.
Yeah, have to fight 2 versions of the final boss in a room somewhere.
Yeah, it's good. Anyway, that stuff interests me. But hey, esports, your grandma, her outrage is understandable.
They make money and everything.
They do. They make lots of money.
They call it sports.
It's time for the big discussion. It's big discussion time for the big video game discussion that this week, once again, comes courtesy of Big Discussion Bobby Vegas.
Here he is.
Who has, I think, just cracked the formula for the kind of thing we're looking for in a big discussion. You can do it too. Wonderful patrons out there. All you need is just something that's happened this week that is like the biggest thing, or the thing that we think is most interesting, which is entirely subjective to us. Maybe it's not that straightforward, but come on.
I would say it's not that straightforward.
Challenge.
Sometimes I think something.
We do swap things around. That's true.
And then you think it's not.
Yeah, that's right.
And you always win. So,
I do always win, because I'm bigger.
Yeah,
he's a war criminal.
We have arm wrestles.
That's it. And then I win, and then this goes here.
Yeah.
So challenge Robert's might. Patreon.com/Team TripleJump. The question post usually goes up on a Monday.
Yes.
Monday. So you can submit it then. And we'll hopefully see you next time. Thank you, Robert. Hi, Dab, actually. The next Resident Evil game is officially in the works. What would you like to see from the title? A return to the ruins of Raccoon City? Another first-person game? A focus on a new character? Or one from the series past? Or are you done with the series and couldn't give a monkeys? May the stomach of your piggy bank be swole. BMBV. P.S. Per your concerns last week, don't worry, I'll always be big money and my ego isn't about to let me give up being read out last on the shout-out section.
Thank you, BMBV.
No pressure.
Got a write up here from was that Gammy Spot?
Yeah, Gammy Spot.
During the Capcom
If you've
Next
got a gammy spot, go to the doctor.
During the Capcom Next 2024 showcase, Capcom has announced that
I forgot that happened.
No, I haven't watched it.
Oh, I haven't, yeah.
Has announced that it's now working on a new Resident Evil game. However, Capcom stopped short of confirming whether it's Resident Evil 9. We're making a new Resident Evil. It was really difficult to figure out what to do after Resident Evil 7, said director Koshi Nakanishi, but I found it, and to be honest, it feels substantial. Nakanishi went on to explain that he couldn't give any further details.
What about 8?
Yeah, what about Resident Evil 8?
Village.
Was he not talking about that one?
I'm going to give you some context.
Okay.
But can't wait to share more when the time is right. Previous games that Nakanishi worked on include Resident Evil 5, in which he worked as a designer, and Resident Evil The Mercenaries 3D, Resident Evil Revelations, and Resident Evil 7 Biohazard, all of which he directed. So this is the
So
first
you're
game
saying
he's
that-
doing since 7.
Right. But
Which is-
why would he act like 8 hasn't come out?
I don't think he's
It was
acting
really
like...
He's
difficult.
just saying it's difficult for
It's
me
like, 'cause
to know
he
what
did
I
7.
should do after I did
Yeah,
7.
what
Right.
should I do after...
see.
What can I do with the
Okay.
next one after 7?
Okay.
That I'm involved in. Anyway, rumors about the next Resident Evil game have been swirling around recently. The upcoming title will reportedly have an open world structure built with the RE engine, similar to Dragon's Dogma 2 and Monster Hunter Wilds.
Ew.
The same
What a
reports
terrible thing to say.
also, how dare you, also indicated that the game will be formally announced later this fall and is scheduled to release sometime in 2025. In the meantime, Resident Evil 0 and Code Veronica are reportedly the next games in the franchise that will be getting remakes. Open world?
No.
No?
Nah.
Don't want it. I wrote down, I hadn't read that or looked into that. I wrote down more condensed environment.
I was going to say, because I
It's like
haven't
the opposite
played,
of what I want.
haven't played Resi 8. I watched Ben watched Peter play it on stream back
Yeah.
in the day. And it did seem that there was a lot of just sort of meandering about a kind of hub area between the more linear sections that were really good. And it probably could have done with maybe not having as much of that.
I agree.
Yeah, I'm pleased to hear that they're doing another game, but not pleased to hear that it's going to be open world. There are a few. For the most part, I really love Resident Evil. I love what they're doing nowadays, both with the remakes and with the regular installments that they're doing, the main series installments. I personally would really like to see a Resi 9 done more in the style of how they're doing the remakes, because I think those are the best games they've done in recent years. Yeah, all right, Resident Evil 7 was really good. Resident Evil 8 as well, I think in its own way was also really, really good, apart from, a couple of drawbacks. But I do just prefer having that, if not linear, then at least kind of, as you say, a bit more like pared back, focused world and objectives, rather than kind of feeling like you're meandering around a little bit, not knowing quite where to go. I also really don't like that. The good thing about Resident Evil, I think, in its early days, is that it was a biohazard. It was about a scientific experiment gone horribly wrong. And particularly in the last couple of installments, although they still try and explain it away with science, it has basically gone overly supernatural. And in Resident Evil 7, there was like a ghost girl, wasn't there, basically, or like a psychic girl. Didn't really like that.
Well, she was the scientific experiment.
She was, that's what I mean. She was
the
explained
science,
with
but then like Resident Evil 8 was like a whole other ball game of like, it's just now monsters.
Yeah, and they tried to explain Resident Evil 8 with like a huge fungus under the village or something, or slime, or I don't really remember now. But and there was the guy, the bloke with the hat and the glasses who was like telekinetic. Heisenberg, yeah. So I kind of wish they would move away from that and just give us like a horrible laboratory under a mansion or equivalent. Don't necessarily.
Got to have a big guy in a hat stalking you at all times.
Yeah.
That's all.
But
good.
not
like big guy in hat is a really important factor.
But not super good at stalking you in the way that he was in Resident Evil 3, which basically meant that you couldn't play the game.
Yeah. The only kind of open world I would like to see, well, I wouldn't like them to do open world, but if they're going to, I would like it to be something like Raccoon City. I think a city full of just traditional zombies and, maybe a police station or maybe a laboratory or, buildings to go into in the immediate aftermath of an apocalypse. It would be great if it was set during the Raccoon City incident, if it was set further back in time. So I'd like to see that. I don't want an open world that's in a European village or, some kind of rural environment. I think, if they're going to do an open world, it should be an interesting kind of grungy city, preferably.
What makes Resident Evil work is that it has key moments and key things that will happen to you during your playthrough that will spook you out. Like, if we're releasing me into the open world, I'm not going to be scared that something's chasing me, because how on earth is it going to know where I am at all times if I'm in an open world? I also think that you lose kind of the suspense and spooks of a linear game as soon as you add it to, you can go wherever you want in this world. You can explore anywhere. How are you going to give me the suspense and the tension before something bad happens if I'm just meandering around a city? I personally prefer them to be in first person. I think that they are spookier in first person.
That's true.
But I don't mind the third person games. I think that 7 and in some places 8 were the kind of more on the horror side of the survival horror, whereas the earlier ones potentially a bit more of the survival side of the survival horror. And I personally feel like whatever Resident Evil's done really well recently is the kind of body horror, like actual genuine, like, this is disgusting, I don't want to be here, but like I need to get out of here kind of horror that they've been doing. And they've done the spooky side of that really well. I think maybe the survival has kind of fallen to the wayside a little bit, and I didn't love the way that Resident Evil 4 played, like with the kind of big open areas, and like I liked the spooky kind of littler areas. So I personally would have liked to see a more condensed environment. I do think if it's an open world game, I can't see it being a main installment into the franchise personally. It might be a spin-off. But I don't see how they could make an open world game like Resident Evil, with Resident Evil in mind, and still have the same like story beats and kind of nature as a Resident Evil game. I'd like to see some new characters. I think we've obviously seen Chris a lot. He's always there, just lurking about, being Chris. I would like to see a female character as the lead, where you can't just pick to play as a man character, because I feel like every time you get to play as a man, you're stuck playing as a man, but every time there's a female character, it's like, well, you could just play as the boy if you want. You don't have to play as the girl. So I would, sue me. You'll get angry at me anyway. I'd like to see a woman, actually.
Who do you think you are?
Yeah, but I'm Ashton Matthews, and I can say what I want, and I want a woman.
Ashton Jump.
It's Ashton Jump now, and I can say what I want. But yeah, I think that I would like to see some new characters, some new stories. If it is set in Raccoon City, I think it's going to have to be something special, because I don't know how you're going to make a zombie city stand out among all the thousands of other zombie games that are out there. So I would be interested to see what they do with it. But I can't see an open world game being a mainline installment in the franchise.
Are we now please done with the Winters family? Is that saga wrapped up? No.
Because spoiler alert for the ending of Resident Evil 8, sorry.
Yeah.
The baby Winters. Ethan I think he's dead.
But there was a DLC,
he's
right?
Gone.
Oh yeah, there was DLC.
Rose,
that's true.
That was Rose Winters. Yeah,
I was going to say
baby.
baby Rose grew up and is now like working for or being monitored by STARS or someone. There was some secret
BSAA
agent guys
feels
with
like
her, and it looks like she's basically going to become her own kind of agent, or either protagonist or antagonist.
Okay.
But I didn't play the DLC, so maybe they just kind of did a DLC and wrapped up her story. I don't remember.
I also haven't played the DLC.
Yeah, I'm not sure what happened at the end. I mean, I wouldn't mind Rose, but Ethan certainly was like
he's gone now.
He was a nothing character, and there are lots of wacky and weird characters and cheesy and hammy lines, and that's why we love the original Resi characters before they sort of started things again. But I feel like Ethan he just doesn't. He's kind of nothing.
Yeah.
He gets his hand cut off all the time, and that's sort of all I can really say about him. I reckon if this isn't Resi 9, maybe they could just, rather than remake one, maybe just reboot reboot one in that it follows a similar trajectory. I'm not necessarily saying they go completely off board with it, but my interest really is how they're going to tackle 5 and 6. Because as much as I joke about loving 6, and I do enjoy 6 as a dumb co-op game, and I think it's better than 5 personally, they are undoubtedly blights on like the numbered Resident Evil games. And if they're working backwards and they're working forwards and they haven't done Resi 1 yet, why not retool Resi 1 to lay the groundworks for things that could be picked up on, threads and stories and characters that could be picked up on in an actual do-over of 5 and 6. Because while maybe characters or certain events might be alluded to in notes or similar in Resi 7 and 8, there's no overt mention or reference to anything that happened in those 2 games, as far as I can tell. So why not just do 5 and 6 again, but completely different?
Yeah.
And use a remake or a reboot of 1 or whatever they're doing with, which one was it? Resi 0 or Code Veronica, to set up story threads that they could then just completely go over 5 and 6 again.
8 referred back to 1 towards the end. They would talk about the Spencer Mansion.
I think that should still be. Yeah, I'm not suggesting that 1 is completely different.
No.
But...
And I think there was a little note or something that talked about something happening in Spain, which is like it was a little hint that maybe Resi 4 was going to happen.
Right.
But I don't think there was any reference to 5 and 6.
So I think this is the way that they can do that potentially, because you can't, if someone's new to the franchise and you're like, right, so you can play Resi 2, you got the PS4 HD re-release of the GameCube remake of the PS1 original. Then you've got spectacular, beautiful Resident Evil 2, spectacular, beautiful Resident Evil 3, spectacular, beautiful Resident Evil 0 remake, Resident Evil, what's it called? Code Veronica, I always forget, remake, 4 remake. And then 5 or 6, they kind of didn't really happen. But then there's 7 and 8.
Which have nothing to do with
by numbering them 7 and 8, that, you're acknowledging that inherently that 5 and 6 happened and that they occurred and that they are part of the series. Because Resi 7 was essentially a reboot.
Yeah, it was.
But they still decided to call it Resident Evil 7. They could have just called it Resident Evil Biohazard and started a whole new numbered thing. But they are keeping 5 and 6 in the lineage. And if they're not going to, refer to 5 and 6 in 7 or 8, I think whatever it is they're doing back in the past is a great way to set things up for just completely ignoring what happened in 5 and 6 and doing brand new games that are just confusingly called 5 and 6.
Or set in perhaps the same location but with almost a completely different story. Just enough DNA that's like, this is still 5, but we're gonna,
You could explore what Chris was doing.
Yeah.
You could explore what any of those characters were doing, because some of them are in it. Leon's in it, and Chris is in it, and
Ada's in.
Jesus,
6,
they're clomping again on the stairs.
Are.
Ada's in it, and what's her name? Claire is in it.
Yeah.
Don't think, is Jill in it? I feel like Jill might be in it as well. I think they all pop up in various ways. Maybe one of them isn't in it. But either way, they could all still have stories in it, but just get rid of all basically the co-op partner player that you play through each of the campaigns with who made no impact and haven't shown up again.
Yeah.
So there's all sorts. They could do all sorts.
Yeah.
But I first person's too spooky for me, personally. Can't do it.
Oh, no. Well, we'll have to see.
Yeah, absolutely. Let us know what you'd like to see from the new Resident Evil game in whatever form that takes, and what you'd like to see happen in the series as it goes forwards. We'd be interested to hear. There's a few places you can find us on the internet, though. Brian is going to tell you about a couple of them now.
You can find us at youtube.com and twitch.tv/Team TripleJump. All of our streams happen on Twitch, apart from on special occasions, whether on YouTube. And all of our videos, of course, go out on YouTube. And if you've got Amazon Prime, the bundle you are paying for already includes a Twitch sub, so you can redeem that against us, get all the benefits of being a Twitch subscriber at no extra cost on top of your Amazon Prime.
Twitter, Facebook, TikTok, and Instagram, on all of which we are at Team TripleJump, and patreon.com/Team TripleJump if you'd like to support us.
Our website is triplej.mup. That's triplejU.mp. There you can find links to everything that we do. And why not leave a 5-star review on your platform of choice? It helps something to do with Al Gore's rhythms, and we'd really appreciate it. Ashton, will you tell us about the sponsor one more time?
Yeah,
please?
it's Fast and Furious game called Gridlock: Siege of Dom. Minik Toretto.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for watching and listening. It's been a pleasure to be here for the past month.
It certainly has.
And Ben and Peter will be back next week.
I'm sure we'll see you soon when they inevitably do some bad predictions
Muck it up again.
Yeah,
most likely. All right. Look after yourselves, everyone. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.